Welcome to the Inspired by Jacqueline podcast, a refreshing place for women struggling with entrepreneurship, faith, or infertility. Stay tuned for today's episode. Thank you, everyone, for tuning back into the Inspired by Jacqueline podcast. Today is a story and a journey that I'm really excited about because it's about bringing awareness and bringing education, and it's all about infertility. So without further ado, let me give you a brief intro on who my special guest is. Sarah Brandell is an infertility and pregnancy loss life and mindset coach. Yes, that was a mouthful, and I know it was like, what is that? And you'll get to know and understand and hear about what she does. But basically, she supports women on their path to motherhood, and motherhood includes infertility. That is a path, it's a journey. And again, I'm really excited about this conversation because it's about educating anyone who's going through it, but also anyone who is looking to support someone that they know, a family member, a friend, etc. So thank you, Sarah, for being here and having a conversation, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to chat. And I have to say, just off the bat, I love that you say infertility is part of motherhood, because that is something I have recently been sharing about a lot. Is if you're showing up, putting yourself out there through this journey, you are showing up as that mother. You're putting that energy out in the world. And so thank you for saying that.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, you just gave me goosebumps because this is the first time that I actually find myself sharing that.
Yeah.
I literally have goosebumps because it's real. I mean, I read it, and it happened when I read your bio and I saw that the path to motherhood, because all of what we do, whether you're able to conceive or not, is a path to motherhood. No one can take that away from you.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. And so I'm going to ask you to elaborate on what it is that you do.
So I meet people in this space where they're having a tough time, right? Like they're going through one of the hardest period of their life that can be really shocking and something they weren't expecting to have to navigate. And I meet with them in that moment and help support them in any way that we can. So I use mindset kind of ways of approaching things and coaching ways of approaching things and thinking about how we're thinking about our journey and how we're showing up in our journey to help women honestly feel less miserable through the process, right? I'm not here to sell that I'm going to make it fun. That's fake.
Yeah.
That's not real news, right?
Yeah.
But there's a way to have joy, to have a present life, to be going after things that you're passionate about, and honor the pain that is your story towards motherhood. That's what I help women do, which is really, really awesome to be able to do that.
Oh my gosh, if I would have had you 30 years ago in my life, it's like, wow, that's definitely something that is needed more of. And so before we get into more of the intentional and the journey, how do you start your morning?
Yeah, my mornings. It's funny. They're all different. For those that don't know, I am a mom. I have a rainbow babe myself that will be 4 this summer. So mornings can be pretty chaotic. I would say that I typically, in the season of life that I am in now, still trying to conceive, still trying to prioritize sleep, am not someone to force myself to wake up super early. I wake up and get my day started with my daughter. And if there's anything intentional I do, it's to try to be as present as possible in whatever I'm doing. It's really easy to be distracted by life, to just be distracted by work, social media, all the things, right? And just be present in what I'm doing with her and enjoying that time, because it goes by so quickly. And I'm so grateful to have her in my life and get her off to where she spends her day, and then able to start my day however it looks. And it's different depending on the day of the week.
Awesome. And so I'm glad that you shared about your daughter. And I want to make sure that the listeners are not confused and say, wait a minute, isn't this about infertility? Why does she have a daughter? What are we talking about?
Yeah.
So explain your journey to
Yeah.
get to that that point, and then we can continue from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you the like Cliff Notes version of my fertility story. I got married and went into starting to build a family knowing that I had PCOS. So I knew things may not be as simple as they are for some. And I think that was a gift for me, in that I wasn't the stereotypical wait a full year of trying before I go get some support. I think I only tried for about 6 months and I decided it was time to go get some support. On our path to our daughter, it took us about a year. It took us medications, working with an OBGYN. We got pregnant, and I still remember as I sit in this room, we were moving into our first home that we purchased. And the morning that we were supposed to move was the day that I found out I was pregnant. And we were so happy. And I had a miscarriage. And it was so shocking and so painful and so devastating. And that was the moment where I felt so alone and unsure really how to navigate everything. And I really did all of that on my own. And that's what I didn't want for other women to have to go through. We were blessed that we were able to quickly conceive again after that with medication again and had my daughter. And so at the time, honestly, I did think she was difficult to get to, right? The ironic thing is when she was about 9 months old, I decided, okay, she's not a year yet, but like we know it might take a while. So let's go ahead and start the process of trying for the next one. And now we're sitting just over 3 years of trying for that next one.
Wow.
We have done rounds and rounds of meds. We have worked with a handful of different specialists, from OBs to NAPRO specialists, for those who know what that is in the infertility space, to functional medicine providers, to reproductive endocrinology. We have done IUI, we have done IVF, and we went through 2 more miscarriages and now haven't had a positive pregnancy test in over 2 years.
Wow.
So we're still on that journey. We're still on that path. I'm prepping to do another embryo transfer next month. And yeah, that's where we are. And we're holding on to the hope for growing our family.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So I want to break down a few things. So you mentioned PCOS. Can you share what that is?
Yeah. So PCOS is a hormonal imbalance. It's one of many, many, many different causes that can lead to infertility. There are people who know this one specific reason is why I have infertility. There are a huge group of people who don't have a clear, obvious answer, right? They are that quote unquote unexplained infertility. Some people, if you talk to different specialists, would say I kind of lie somewhere in the middle of that, because I do have PCOS, but we've done things to balance those hormones to improve those things. And on paper, those look improved, right?
Yeah.
But it hasn't fixed the issue. So there's something else at play that we don't know of. But yes, that's one of those things. By nature of just PCOS with hormonal imbalance just means that you don't ovulate an egg as often. So the less you ovulate an egg, the less likely you are to get pregnant.
Right. And you said something really important, that was you were able to find out beforehand about your fertility journey. And so how is that? Because I know it's different for me, and I'll share after you, but share as to how you found out beforehand.
Yeah. Like I said, that's a gift that I had. That knowledge comes from a couple things. One is just that type of hormonal imbalance causes your cycle to be irregular. So I knew that my cycle was irregular and was worked up for that before I was ever interested in trying to conceive. So that is a beneficial thing. Now, there are plenty of women who they don't know that that's irregular. They don't know that that's abnormal, or they're on birth control for years. So they would never know that they had an irregular cycle, right? And then they go to start trying to have children and find out. My background is that I am in medicine. I actually am a physician assistant. So again, the gift of knowledge that I have that not everyone has allowed me. Now, there are people who have silent endometriosis or have polyps or fibroid, so many things. Like I said, there's so many different directions that could be causing infertility, and they may not know. Like you said, you didn't know, and that is definitely a possibility.
Right. And so with that said, currently, do you feel that there's still not that much knowledge or something in the midst of, let's say, womanhood for us? Let's say, for example, we have to do a pap smear every year, right? We have to do colonoscopy at a certain age, mammogram at a certain age. Is there something or a conversation that you've heard of as far as getting tested ahead of time?
That's interesting. I will say from my experience of working in medicine, the regularly scheduled tests that we receive as patients are to prevent things that are dangerous, right?
Yep.
To prevent colon cancer, you mentioned, to
Mm-hmm.
prevent cervical cancer, to prevent having high cholesterol that could give you a heart attack, right? There's nothing that's set in stone of a recommended test to figure out, hey, you're going to have more of a troubled time getting pregnant because number one, not everybody wants to get pregnant. Number two, it's not necessarily dangerous to your health per
Right.
se. Now, I would argue a little bit with that, but
Me too.
but that being said, I do think there's room for it would really be nice if there was more of a conversation around, hey, we should be talking to women at a younger age of if you think parenthood and conceiving is in your future, maybe we should be doing something about that. Maybe we should be testing about that and getting information early so that we know, hey, maybe you are someone who needs to talk about, you shouldn't wait until your 30s, late 30s, etc. But that's definitely not something that's standard of care right now.
Yeah. And that's what I've been seeing. Once I started with, yes, I'm going to start talking about this conversation, I was doing some research. I'm like, I can't believe there's still nothing, in the midst as far as this is an option for you if you want to, at least an option, not a mandatory, but at least an option. And I feel that is sad because it's like it becomes, when you find out, a medical alert, a medical awareness, it becomes an issue with insurance, whether you have it or not. How do you take care of it? How do you, what do you do? It's all related. It's money spent, whether it's through insurance or not.
Yeah.
To not have this, early stage checking.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I know there are a handful of different optional, I choose to go out there and do options. The one I'm specifically thinking of is I know there's a hormone at home lab panel. Now, number one, there's a cost, like you said. You have to know to want to do that.
Exactly. But when you don't know,
you don't know.
You don't know.
And I think if women go to a provider today and say, hey, should I be worried about my fertility? Should I be doing something about it? I think the most common answer you're going to get is tell me when you want to get pregnant and then we'll deal with it.
Yes.
Which I don't know how it was for you. I know for me, ironically, as I sit here talking about infertility, my mom will tell you I grew up saying I never wanted to have kids. And then it's as if something switches, right? It's as if this internal thing switches and it was the only thing I cared about, right? And so to be in that state where you want it and it's the thing that is your identity and you want it so badly, and then to be told I don't know, we're gonna have to figure it out and do all these tests. That's a bummer for it to be that way.
Yeah. And so for me, my journey was a bit different where, yes, I wanted, it was part of my upbringing as to what I wanted in my life, as a young girl, just seeing, a family, marriage and kids. And I wanted that. I grew up in a Hispanic household and seeing family members around and things like that. I thought it was natural for me to be able, there was no question that I would not. And, through conversations as to what you learn as you're growing up, it wasn't a conversation as, oh, there's a potential, there's a possibility that you may not be able to.
Right.
So when I found out, I was just distraught because I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean? What does that mean? And I had to take a step back and I'm like, what? This doesn't make sense. It just could not connect. I could not connect the dots. And I had to do research. I had to take a step back and understand and all that. And then when I finally kind of understood, it was conversations now about treatment and what you can do and can't do and all of this stuff. Long story short, for me, it was one of those cases that you mentioned earlier, unexplained. For me, that made it even worse because it's like, what do you mean? We're doing all these tests and you can't tell me why. And that made it harder. And I found myself in what I call a black hole, a very, very bad depressive state.
Yeah.
that I never thought I would come out of. And didn't have the support on one. I had support on one end, but didn't have the support of someone who understood what I was going through. And that was a whole different conversation and avenue and journey. And it was through my faith that after years and all that stuff, that I was able to come out of it. And I chose to, after doing tests and having conversations with my husband at that time, I was done because I was so depressed that I didn't want to go through, oh, what about adoption? What about, all other avenues, surrogacy, all that stuff? I couldn't. So I knew myself. So I think, do you feel that you understanding as a woman yourself and what you could handle and can't handle, did that allow you to proceed ahead with getting more tests or doing more treatments? How did that work for you? And your emotions? I feel that.
Yeah. So it's a loaded question because if you, like I say all the time, one of the biggest things that I have learned about myself is if you would have asked me in September of 2018, when I was going through that first miscarriage, if I would have been through what I've now been through in the following however many years, I wouldn't have believed you. Like there would have been no way that I would have believed that I would have gone through all the tests and the procedures and the meds and the processes and the more miscarriages and doing all that. I wouldn't have, number one, believed you that I would have been willing to do that. And number two, believed you that I would have been able to do that. And what has changed is I have worked so much on myself and taking care of myself through a difficult season that it's made it so it feels possible to go through those things, to navigate those steps. And so I say that to say that there can definitely be work done. And that's why I do what I do about taking care of yourself. And I am not the person to take care of yourself in a way to get you to do more, but to get you to a place where you feel really good about your decision, whatever that decision is, right? For some women, that decision is I'm willing to do X amount of whatever it is, cycle tracking or treatments or whatever. And if it doesn't work in that time, then this is now no longer my focus. For other women, it's I'm going to do everything. I'm going to run the gamut. Like you said, I'm going to do all the treatments. I'm going to do the surrogacy. I'm going to do the adoption, or I'm going to do anything. I'm not going to stop till I get to an answer. And both of those answers can be right.
Right.
So I think that's the important thing is, yes, there can be this focus on you have to take care of yourself, because if you are depressed, you are in a black hole, you are burnt out from the misery of infertility, absolutely, you're not going to be able to keep going sustainably. But that does not mean that taking care of yourself and getting yourself out of that place means you should keep going.
Right.
You have to decide for yourself what's best.
Right. It's a personal decision, a personal journey that you have to sit down with yourself. And because it's your body, your mind, everything that is affected. So can you describe to me who you were before you were diagnosed or when you found out? Were you an introvert, an extrovert? Did any of your characteristics, personalities change as you were going through this journey?
I would identify myself as more of an introvert in that I need more time by myself to recover, recharge, re-energize. But I enjoy spending time with people. And that's been pretty consistent. Now, what's changed is I was probably more outgoing, more willing to put myself out there, spend time with others. And like you talked about, not feeling like you really had someone who understood what you were going through. There's absolutely a space for it when you're in the depth of this journey and you look out to your friend group, your family group, the people who support you, and you feel like they just don't have any clue what you're feeling. It is this reaction that I think is very common to kind of close in, to just kind of stay to yourself, to stop showing up to things, to do less, because that just feels easier. That just feels more safe when you're feeling that way. Now, I think that has changed in the last few years. The thing that I prioritize now in my life is I am still 100% invested and passionate on still going on my own infertility journey and working towards building our family more. But I also am living for today. And if I'm like head down, only thinking about when I have that baby in my arms in the future and nothing else matters, then that wastes all of these months, these now years that I've been trying. So instead, I have been able to learn how to go after what I want in a way that feels authentic to me and enjoy my family, enjoy my friends, schedule the vacations, do all of those things. So that's kind of like, it's kind of evolved.
No, I definitely understand. And for me is more of, there's a similarity where I did become more closed in. I did become more to myself, and I kept all those feelings inside, which is what I feel really brought me down that black hole, because I couldn't find anyone to relate to, or to, I had the comfort, support of just the physical part, but the mental part, not having someone to understand, was like, I just kept on bottling up my feelings, my true feelings. So how often do you take a mental break? How often do you do a mental wellness check on yourself?
Every day. Yeah, I think what has been successful for me is there has been times in my life where it's like I'm taking that mental check or mental wellness break because I have to, because I need to, and that means it's too late, right? Whereas now I have learned to live a life where I weave that into my day-to-day. And it looks different every day. Maybe that is taking time to myself to go on a silent walk. Maybe that is taking time to sit down with my journal and like just write whatever the heck comes up. Maybe that's my once a week call where I sit down and talk with my own personal coach. There's a lot of different things, but I've learned to weave it in. And that allows me to have less of those moments. It's not that they are not there, right? Well, let's be honest, but less of those moments where I'm like, oh my goodness, I really need to pause. Like things are really off kilter, because I am trying to intentionally do it on a regular basis.
And in reference to support, did you feel that you had, even though there was someone, not really a lot of people, or maybe no one who actually knew how to help or how to be of support and know what you were going through, but just physical support around you, family, friends, how often did you feel like you had that?
I think I definitely do. I think it's definitely there. I always talk about, when I talk with clients about dealing with unwanted comments.
I was just going to go, that was my next question. So we can go into that.
We have to understand that our brain is wired to avoid discomfort. And I think about that with my friends, with my family members, that for that first miscarriage, I got meals, I got cards, I got flowers. For the third one, nothing. And that's not to talk badly about anybody, but that's to be honest that they're all in their messy middle of life, navigating whatever that is. And they were there to show up for me and send love to me. And I know they still are, but to like keep inserting themselves into my pain, that's a lot for to ask them to do. And so they're there. And if I call on them, they would be there in a heartbeat. Now, the person that's been the most substantial has obviously been my husband. Like I would not be where I am on this journey without walking that journey with him. We are blessed with the fact that this journey can either really build up your relationship or really tear it down, I believe. And it has really supported us and brought us closer together in a way that I'm super grateful for. So absolutely, he's been my biggest support, but also I have set expectations for myself of what would be reasonable for support from people who don't fully understand it, and then sought out support elsewhere. Gone to support groups, put myself in instances where I can open up and be coached about what I'm going through, because it's a lot to expect your mom, your best friend, your whatever, who hasn't been through it, to be able to be that person for you.
Agree, most definitely. So you mentioned unwanted conversations or comments. How have you dealt with those?
They're always there. They're never going away. A couple things. One is I operate life, and this is easier at certain times of life than others, but I operate life with the assumption that most humans are good human beings and they want to be good people and they mean the best.
Mhm.
Even if they're not doing something that's the best, they mean
Right.
the best. So that's number one. And even if I'm wrong about that every once in a while, I think I win in life if I make that assumption. So I just
I love
operate that way.
I love that.
About anything. And so when I'm in a moment where someone's saying something to me, and first of all, you have that like, did they really just say that? Like the emotion comes up. And one thing I find is we tend to like beat ourselves up about that. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be
Mhm.
irritated, whatever it is. Like allow that to happen.
Allow it. Mhm.
And then pause, because if we react in that frustration or react in that irritation, that's not going to be a good reaction.
Right.
And pause and remind yourself, one, they probably want to be a good human. And then two, I try to get curious. So for example, I was talking with someone the other day who there's always the person who tells the story of my friend just stopped trying, went on vacation, got drunk, and they just got pregnant. And like when you're in it and you're pouring your heart and soul into something and someone tells you just relax,
Mhm.
when you just spent hundreds of dollars to do acupuncture and go to yoga and meet with a
Right.
therapist, that feels really invalidating.
Feels like a punch in the face. Like
Yes. So
in the
number one,
gut.
it's okay to like feel that way.
Yeah.
And then number two, no, again, they're trying to be helpful. They're trying to make an uncomfortable thing a little bit more comfortable with whatever they're saying. And I always say, just be a little bit curious. Could there be any truth to what they're saying, right? Maybe I could do a little bit here or there to be promoting relaxation in my life. Like, thanks for the reminder, and move on. And
Mhm.
there are times, I always say there's times where that interaction is coming from someone who is important enough to you or matters enough to you that there is room for some education.
Right.
And we can do that. But there are other times where it's coming from someone where I don't even need to go there. We're just going to move on and I'm going to walk away. And you have
Mhm.
to make that decision.
And I love what you said in turning a positive spin into it,
Yeah.
knowing how you know yourself, your reactions, you know how you think and how you receive certain things. So giving a positive spin to it is really what I feel the most important thing. Removing yourself from the whole negativity part of that conversation, that tone, whether it's a tone or whether it's the way it was said or whether it's the person or whatnot. Removing yourself, taking a step back, taking a deep breath and really saying, okay, let me not respond right away because it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
But let me get frustrated on my end and just let me regroup.
Yeah.
I know for me, I'm a pretty passive person. And so for me to get to the level of that's it, like I don't want to hear anymore. Like my mother was very understanding. I was going to church. A lot of people were very understanding and things like that. And I was doing fairly well. And then there was a certain point or different times throughout the month, right? And we'll talk in a few minutes about that 2-week wait.
Yeah.
Where there are months that days that you're able to hear certain things, but there are days that just stay away from me. I don't want to hear anything. Don't utter anything.
Absolutely.
And at one point during my journey, I had to tell my mother because I had a big family and they had kids and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I said to my mother, I said, I need your help. Can you please speak to the family and let them know to stop asking? I'm asking you to do me this favor. And when I shared that, I felt like I released a whole load of frustration and anger and everything that I felt at peace. And even if I heard something, it didn't bother me after that. Yes, I would get frustrated once in a blue moon, depending on how I felt that day, but it wasn't taken to heart the way it was before. And that's something that helped me.
That's such a great example of how boundaries can be so, when done in the right way, can be so helpful to give you your energy back.
Oh, yes.
Right? I always talk about that with clients about kind of approaching typically like events, like which I get when you're talking about your cultural family was probably on a weekly basis. But the Christmas gathering of all the distant family members and all the comments, it can feel like you're bracing for impact almost walking into those interactions. And so yes, like setting those boundaries, having someone help you out to set those boundaries can be so helpful. And you also mentioned something that I think about often, that I teach about, of like the grocery store worker can say something, the coworker, the friend, the sister, the whatever, and you can kind of be that person who like internalizes it and gets angry, but doesn't say anything and does it again and again and again. But at some point, that unprocessed anger, frustration, irritation, whatever it is, it's going to boil over. You're going to hit a threshold.
Yes.
And it may be your best friend says like the slightest
The
comment
slightest.
that like that comment in any other day would have not mattered.
Right.
But because you're to here with all this unprocessed frustration, you like scream at her and she's like, what the heck did I do? Like, sorry, like I was trying to be helpful. And it comes from that. So like the more we can honor in the moment how we're feeling and be okay with it, the more we are able to avoid those blow up moments, which they're bound to happen because we're human. So
exactly. And like I said, once I released that one conversation with my mother, and it took 10 years to kind of get to that level, but that conversation was midway. So I think shortly after that, either the comments were still coming, but once I released that, I guess I was so in the moment every day after that, that I wasn't, for some reason, I didn't hear these comments anymore. And it didn't affect me anymore the way it did. It was growth. It was understanding what I wanted to move ahead with. And for me, the road ahead was more about just proceeding ahead as a childless mother, you know, and I say mother because I'm still a mother to many in different capacities, because we still have those nurturing features as a mother within us. And when I made my choice and moved on, it just started to feel better. And once I moved on, it was just such a peace with myself. And like you said earlier, everyone's journey is different. How everyone receives everything is different. So even though we're sharing our story, our journey, is for the listeners to understand that, you know what, it may seem like it's the same, but it's not, because the way we receive things, the way we breathe, the way we accept things is so different.
I wanted to say, like, if you're hearing this and you're like, I am not there, like I'm still real angry every time says someone something, it's okay. I get it because I was there. Like I totally do.
It takes time. It's not you snap your fingers and you're better. No. It took years. And I just started talking about this 30 years. 30 years ago, I went through this and I just started talking about it. So I'm really happy that I'm able to have this conversation now. Really excited, because I want others to know that there's a good percentage of women who are going through this. And it does affect men as well. But in the conversation of women and motherhood, there's a good percentage. It's just that it's silent for some reason. And I want to do my part, just like you're doing your part, in being there as a platform to share and to give education and to be a support. So you mentioned, or I saw something in your bio or on your website about the 2-week wait. Tell me about the 2-week wait, which when I saw those 3 words, wow.
Brings back a lot of emotions.
It brought back lots of memories, like, oh my goodness, I don't want to see another calendar. I don't want to know anything. So tell me more about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a tumultuous time. And when you're on an infertility journey, like I can't even tell you how many 2-week waits I've been through, right? It's kind of crazy to think about.
A lot.
And there's a lot of confusion and a lot of misunderstanding of how to correctly approach the 2-week wait, because we feel like we need to be doing it right, which there is no right. You hear people that say, just be positive, just hope for the best. And then you have the person over here who's like, I feel so negative and I feel in so much dread. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about over here about this word of hope. Like, that sounds impossible. So what I aim to do in the many, many different ways, whether it's just conversations with my podcast, with resources I give out for free, is to help women navigate the 2-week wait in what I call a more authentic way. Because what I find a lot of women are doing is, if you ask the average person going through infertility, how do you get through the 2-week wait? The first answer, 95% of the time, will be avoid thinking about it. Distract yourself, go on vacation, get a good book, pick up a hobby, because they're so terrified of sitting with whatever emotions are coming up in the 2-week wait that they want to do anything but be with those emotions. And I get that and I understand that. But what I think is ironic is the more we resist, the more, the saying is the more we resist, it persists. So the more we resist, the more we distract ourselves. We're not processing through that. We're not allowing those emotions to go through our body. We're just holding on to them and getting more stiff and more full of a lot of negative energy. And so what I really advocate for, which can be scary, and I get it, it was scary for me too, is to allow whatever you're feeling that day to come up. And I don't mean all day. We don't have to just be like sitting with our emotions all day for 2 weeks, but even if it's for 2 minutes, like today, I am feeling really doubtful that this month is going to work. And rather than beating myself up for being that way, like it's okay. It's okay that I feel doubtful. I'm going to let the doubt be here for a couple minutes. I'm going to kind of navigate what that feels like, and we'll see what tomorrow feels like.
Right.
And I think that doing it that way, ironically, makes the 2-week wait so much less painful because we're releasing it rather than holding on to all that.
And it's not too much anxiety.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's the allowance over resistance.
Yes. Yes, because we resist either just like walking away, avoid thinking about it, or we literally distract ourselves. We overeat, we overwork,
that's what I did. Yeah.
we over exercise. Some people, we over social media, whatever it is, we do those things to just numb out and avoid feeling all of the emotions. And that creates so much more negative emotions because now we have all the guilt and the shame for whatever we were overindulging in. And if we just learn, which sounds scary, but if we learn the practice of sitting with the uncomfortable emotion from the start, it becomes such an easier process.
Yeah.
And that takes time to build that skill because we were all taught from a super young age, don't cry. Like, oh, you're upset here. Here's a popsicle. Like nowadays it's, oh, you're upset here. Here's a tablet. Whatever we can do to avoid the negative emotions.
Wow.
And it's an unlearning. Like it's a new skill to build, to learn. Yes, this emotion is uncomfortable. Yes, this is technically what I would consider in my life a negative emotion, but to sit here to experience doubt, to experience dread, to even experience grief, it's possible. It's authentically human. That's what we're meant to do. It doesn't feel fun, but it's safe to do that. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things I can do is help women learn it's safe to be with their body and to feel their emotions.
Yeah, most definitely. Yes to everything you just said. I know for myself, I distracted myself. I try to put it to the side to not think about it. If I don't think about it, it's going to work. And then the day that I got my period, I knew it didn't work.
Yeah.
And my tears just flowed and flowed. And then I got into an addiction of shopping. So I would get my period, cry, and go shopping. And my credit.
The overindulging.
The debt just started going. It was like, this was continual, one after the other, 1 month after the other, until I was like, I looked at my bill. I was like, what the heck am I doing? I had to give myself a reality check. Like, this is not working. We got to do something else. And it's that trial and error, is the understanding. And I do like what you shared, that, if we're able to allow ourselves to be in the moment, to understand the process of that 2-week wait, which is so intense. It's heavy. I get it. It is totally is heavy, but we have to do something to try to release.
And the thing that I'll add about the 2-week wait that's super common is women are almost afraid to have hope through the 2-week wait because they feel they're getting their hopes up, right?
Yeah.
As if it's going to make the period starting more painful.
Right.
The truth is it doesn't. It can't make it more painful. And instead, we're like pre-feeling miserable to try to make the misery of the period feel less painful. And it doesn't work like that. And so I do try, like I said, to work with women to help make some room for some hope. Make some room for the possibility. And that's at the end of the day, my biggest goal.
And I'm sure for those who are going through this journey, they understand what the 2-week wait is. So for those who don't are not going through the journey or don't
Yeah.
have the understanding, share what the 2-week wait is.
So what 2-week wait refers to is, regardless of how you're trying to conceive, is the period of, hey, we have had ovulation, we potentially got pregnant, but we don't know yet. We don't have a way of knowing if it worked or not. So we're waiting those 2 weeks to take a pregnancy test to see if the period doesn't start as a sign that, yes, it did stick. Yes, we are pregnant, and you get to celebrate that we're pregnant. And so it's that in between moment of did it not work, that happens every single month for someone
That
on their infertility
suspense.
journey.
The suspense. What are 3 soothing facts and tips that you would share with someone who just recently got diagnosed and is starting their walk with the journey of infertility?
So I would say, to start off, to just help them allow some acceptance of however they're feeling. Because there's a lot of feeling, again, like I said, of I need to be doing this right. I need to be showing up to this journey in the correct way, feeling the correct way. And we're all different. There is no correct way. Whatever way you're doing it is the correct way. And just permission to not feel whatever you're doing, however you're feeling, whatever emotions are coming up is wrong, because they're not. And a lot of women come to me feeling as though they've been doing it wrong, being told as though it's been wrong. And that's like my first thing is no. However you feel, whatever is coming up, that's authentic to you, and that's okay for that to be the case. And that can be a huge relief for people to hear that, right? 2 other soothing things that I think could be really beneficial is, one is to really look for ways that they can begin this practice that I've talked about quite a bit, of coming back to their body, to being present with their body. And I say that as someone who, if I would have heard that 5, 6, 7 years ago, I probably would have been like, that sounds a little woo woo. I'll be honest, right? I told you guys I'm coming from
what
medicine.
What are you talking about?
I come from medicine. I come from science, analytical type A brain. So when someone would have first told me to come back to my body, I would have really been like, I don't know what you're talking about. But really what I refer to with that is, it's very common to disconnect, to be angry at your body for not being successful at this thing that you thought was going to be a simple process, to feel broken, to feel like almost separate from your body. And the more that we can come back to loving our body, loving ourselves as the human that we are, and experiencing whatever is coming up for us in our body. So what I mean by that is, if you're feeling grief from a recent loss, our brain thinks thoughts of that ended in a miscarriage. That's terrible. I feel awful about that. I'm feeling grief. That signals a cascade of hormones, a cascade of neuromodulators, everything in your body, and literally creates sensations in our body. We're just really good at disconnecting and not feeling what those feel like. Because why would we choose to feel grief? It's the exact same thing when you're driving down the road and the cop pulls up behind you. We all know that feeling where it drops. You feel the fear. That is the same thing. That's an emotion of fear in our body. We know that one. We're really disconnected from all of the others. And so the more we can practice coming back to, what does it feel like to be anxious? What does it feel like to feel disappointment? What does it feel like to have all these emotions? That's how we can release them and feel so much lighter in the process. And then the last thing I would say as a self-soothing, to get through this process, is to seek support, seek community, seek connection. Talking about your journey, as you now are learning, to get it out off your chest, can be such a gift, and can be such a way of validating your experience and allowing you to work through your experience, whether that's with a friend who's going through it, whether that's with a support group, whether that's with a coach, whoever it is. But being able to talk about it can be so beneficial.
I love all of that. It's just, at the end of the day, it comes back to you as the person, and allowing yourself to move on, and in reference to accepting one path over the other, right? If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Superpower. I think it would be something where I could snap my fingers and show up where I want to show up, right? but
Yeah.
with my family, and then next moment be at the lake, like enjoying the sun. And then the next moment over here with this group, being able to fast forward that process.
Yeah. Episode 9, she shared something similar to that. It's just like I snap my finger, I could be here or there or here or there. And it's like, and then, whew, I can breathe. That is awesome. So what is the biggest takeaway you feel from today's chat that you hope listeners take away?
I think my biggest takeaway I want to shout from the rooftops to anyone navigating infertility is, and honestly, any difficult season of life, is as much as it can feel insurmountable in the moment, there is another side of it. There is the opportunity to go through the journey, not around it. Like, it's going to be difficult, but also enjoy life, also be present in life, also build your career, your hobby, your relationships, and not feel as though infertility has stolen your entire identity. Because I think that's super common for a lot of women to feel, I show up to appointments, I take meds, I pay for infertility bills, and like everything else is second rate to that. Like, that's all I know. And that doesn't have to be that way.
So for those who are not going through that journey, but they know someone, what is something that you would share as far as how they can better support that person?
I think at the end of the day, what we can work on is to attempt to be, if at all possible, more validating, more understanding, and less trying to fix it for someone unless they're asking for it. So just being the open ear to listen and say, I'm sorry. I wish that wasn't the case. Just hearing them out, asking them, how can I support you? Waiting for them to say, what would you do before you offer your ideas? Because without being in it, your ideas can be coming from a place that feels really disconnected to what they're going through. And I think that we can use that advice for so many areas of life, right? To just be the listening ear. I have to practice this with my husband, right? He comes home and tells me about a stressful day of work. I instantly go into problem solving mode. I'm like, okay, but what if we would have done this, or if you would have said it this way? And he's like, can I just have a hug? Like, right? Like, he just wants to be heard.
Yes.
And the more that we can do that, we're all going to win.
Yeah, I love that. That's on point for sure. And I'll leave it at that. So is there something that I didn't ask that you would like to share?
No, not necessarily. I think it was a great conversation. I think the only thing I would share is we talked a lot about the 2-week wait. And it can be a really hard time for people. If you are going through 2-week wait, or if you know someone going through 2-week wait, I do actually have a free workbook that has reading prompts, journal prompts, and daily meditations to listen to for all 14 days. So share it with someone who could use it, because I think it can really help people come back to taking care of themselves through a stressful time. And I would love to share that with anyone who needs it.
Awesome. And so if you can share what your platforms are, I am going to share that in the show notes as well. But if you can just share it, and then also tell me a little bit more about the coaching and your platform on that.
Absolutely. So I live mostly on 2 places. One is on Instagram at Sarah Brandell, which you'll have in the show notes. I'm on Instagram too, but on Facebook too, but I'm mostly on Instagram. And then the other place is that she mentioned I do have a podcast. It's called aptly the Path to Motherhood podcast, where I come on a weekly basis and share thought, concepts, ideas, ways to approach things on the journey, as well as bring on guests who can share their wealth of knowledge on that topic. It's not a place to fix your fertility. It's not a place to change your diet. It is a place to accept where you are. So, for example, I had someone in the last month where we talked about how to approach intimacy while going through infertility, which is a huge battle. And so I like to bring people on that can share their wisdom about those different concepts. So those are the 2 places. So it's called the Path to Motherhood podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah, for just sharing everything. You mentioned towards the end about, a topic that you shared on your podcast on, intimacy. Infertility is like the tip of the
iceberg.
And there's so many things that are affected or can be impacted based on the different pieces of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so are in this journey with our partner, and whether it's communication, intimacy, anything like that. So thank you for sharing where they can find you for the podcast so that they can tune in for that as well. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing and being transparent and sharing the tips.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
It was truly, truly awesome to have Sarah Brandell on this episode today. It truly meant a lot to hear her perspective and to share some commonalities in our journeys. You know, as I said before, infertility is very unique to every single person. So you may find or hear someone who's going through PCOS, and that person's PCOS can be different than someone else's. You can hear someone having another type of infertility, and it doesn't mean that you're both going through the same journey. And the reason for that is because everyone's emotions, understanding, and reactions are different. And when you have that and you add an illness or you add any situation, people are going to react differently. They're going to experience things differently. So, no matter how many times you may hear someone say infertility, please note that there are so many, as I mentioned before, that there are so many different types of infertility, that there are so many different journeys that people are going through and decisions that people are working on. So be extra sensitive, be attentive. And as Sarah said, it's very important to allow and not resist. If you're going through this journey, allow yourself to experience what you're experiencing, to feel what you're feeling. Allow yourself, give yourself permission to feel, to go through it. Because the more that we try to cover it up, the more that we put it underneath the rug, the more that we try to go around it, we are avoiding the conversation, avoiding the hurt, avoiding the unknown, and avoiding fear. Allow yourself. And it's so true. When you allow yourself, when you release the fear, the suffering, the frustration, I can personally say that when I allowed myself to go through it, to experience that pain, it started getting better for me. I stopped resisting, and it allowed me to feel. It allowed me to see the road ahead. So try that. Allow yourself versus resisting. It might be ugly. It might get ugly. Let it get ugly. It's okay. The purpose of this platform is for me to provide you with tools and resources. And Sarah Brandell is one of those resources. And I'll be sharing tools and resources. So make sure you check the show notes for Sarah's information. Make sure you stay tuned for future episodes. And if you're not going through this journey, to build that knowledge, to help someone, to support someone. Thank you again, Sarah, for being on this platform. And stay tuned for the next episode of Inspired by Jacqueline podcast. Take care.